Hey, I am Phoebe Roberts, the creator of the Mrs. Hawking Theatrical Adventure series, and I am delighted to announce that we have just completed the script for Mrs. Hawking Part 9, Blood and Water, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the process that got us here. This is a pretty amazing accomplishment because not only have we managed to write 9 of these things, we've written 9 in a medium that doesn't often have a lot of serialization. I can't really think of any other series in the theater that's gone on for 9 plays. It was always really important to us to tell multiple stories, not just because we felt like we had the potential to do that, but because we thought it would be really interesting to follow a series of characters that could grow and change in really radical ways over exploring them for a long period of time. So when we realized that potential, we decided fairly early on that it might be cool to shoot for doing 3 trilogies, where each one would have an arc. Each arc would build up to a greater arc, and then those 3 greater arcs would create one mega arc. And that's a pretty tall order, I think, in any medium, not even just if you're writing scripts. As I've talked about in other videos, theater is very much made up of a series of arcs. The characters go on journeys that include a lot of challenges to the ways that they are personally weak as they go about trying to achieve a goal. And in the course of enduring those challenges, they end up changed and they become something new. And the artist has a ton of opportunity to say something interesting by watching these characters go through those struggles and those changes. So of course, any play is going to be about building an arc. So when you decide that a play is going to be part of a trilogy, then you have to figure out what sort of the greater arc is going on. So you have the added challenge of not only making each installment's arc compelling on its own, because it does need to be, you also need to figure out how those arcs are going to stack on top of each other to make a satisfying trilogy. And there are all different challenges involved in making a satisfying trilogy. Even under our unusual circumstances, an evening of theater or a single piece of theater is meant to be a satisfying experience in and of itself. So it's kind of a waste if you just make it so, oh, this is a bunch of stuff we need to get out of the way or establish without really building to anything just because it's part of a larger story. So we weren't going to do that. But it still does need to be part of a 3-step journey where every new place that the individual pieces get you to brings you to somewhere actually significant on this larger journey that will have a meaningful culmination by the time that it reaches part 3. I'm sure we've all seen trilogies where the last installment didn't stick the landing and it was a letdown after all that buildup, or they kind of threw away the second installment because they had a strong beginning and a strong ending, but they didn't really know how to make the middle interesting. So it's already a tall order on top of a tall order. And then, as if that weren't challenge enough, we wanted to make each trilogy significant in an overall journey. So everything needs to fit together when you're looking at it as a grand whole across years of storytelling, where the characters have both a meaningful journey in the singular climactic piece, they have a satisfying end to that 3rd trilogy, and you can see a payoff of the arcs that the characters have been going through from the very beginning of all of your storytelling. So you can see there was a lot riding on this part 9. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we were trying to do with it and how we approached this particular challenge to sort of honor all the work that we'd done up to this point. One of our strategies that we utilized in order to create that sense of payoff was we wanted to make it feel big. And we did that a couple of ways. One, we included lots of characters in it. This is easily, far and away, our biggest cast. I think it has like 22 named characters plus a bunch of ensemble people, which is almost double the size of any previous cast that we've had. It's something we usually avoid because it makes things like scheduling rehearsals and such incredibly difficult, but we were going to pull out all the stops and make it work this time. And one of the advantages of having that many characters means that you can have a lot going on. It gave us a whole bunch of opportunities for new plots, new threads, all things that we could have interwoven with each other, and interactions, having new combinations of characters to bounce off of each other. It would allow the story to feel really full and really complex and really rich. We also gave ourselves permission to let this one be a little bit long. All of our previous pieces have been between about 1 hour and 1 hour and a half. And generally, I think that's a good idea because it means they keep moving, nobody has a chance to get bored, and with everybody's attention span shot these days, it just seemed like a good place to be. But since we had so much we needed to accomplish, we said it is okay if this one is a little bit bigger. We're still under complete obligation to keep it from ever being boring or dragging, but we let ourselves have a higher page count than we usually do, and we expect when it's all put together that it'll probably be in the 2-hour range, which is something that we've never done before. Of course, you could argue that this ups the challenge level in a lot of ways to make sure all of those threads interweave in a way that feels natural, or that it doesn't feel overstuffed and people lose track of what's going on, or that if it's so packed and stuff, it ends up feeling bloated or dragging. So we knew we would have to plan that stuff out really carefully in order to make sure it kept up the typical pop and verve that we try to make sure the scripts have. Added to that, I was running a bit late because of some health issues that I had to deal with this past spring, which made us lose a fair bit of time. So we had to pull out every trick in our bag to get things done and keep things moving so that we would have a script ready in time to shoot this summer. So the third trilogy has always been about building a team of heroes around Mrs. Hawking. And we knew that this episode was going to be about how they make the team work and the trials and tribulations of all of a sudden working in collaboration with a large group, as opposed to just a handful of people or completely independently, the way that Mrs. Hawking always did. So the big main theme that we decided on for this one, that it would be about moving from that sense of individual agency toward the power of collective action, which we liked that for a bunch of reasons. One was sort of a limitation of the genre that we work in itself. Mrs. Hawking is a superhero story of sorts, and I've always been a big fan. But a thing about it that's kind of characteristic is it's always been very much about the actions of an individual, like asking people, if you had the power, what would you do with it? If you were able to affect the world in a meaningful way, what would your choices be? What kind of person would you choose to be? Which is, very interesting, and you can do a lot with it. But it's kind of a feature and not a bug, unfortunately, that kind of focus on individual agency kind of elides the fact that in the real world, problems are often way more complicated that can be handled by the actions of one person working all alone, even if they, have extraordinary abilities. So they often say, without intending to, that problems can be solved if you defeat the right one person, the right one villain, or that if you make the right choices on your own, you don't need the support of other people. Or it's just a massive oversimplification of the complexities and the systems and the structures that often need to be addressed and changed in order to make meaningful change in the world. And again, that is just the way that the genre works. But personally, I was finding that kind of to be limiting and oversimplifying to some of the messages that I wanted to deliver. So we thought it would be a good idea in this one to sort of expand the mission to acknowledge that truth, that sometimes it's not about individuals, sometimes it's about a lot of people coming together and taking on the structures that cause problems and not just the issues created by individual actors. And that fits really nicely with Mrs. Hawking's struggle over the entire course of the series, which has been to learn that everything we do is better together and that she needs people just like anybody else. And that just fits so nicely that we thought that that would be a really good main theme. Because as I mentioned, we were not just creating a single story. We were not just finishing off a single trilogy. We were finishing off an entire arc. And that meant that we had to do stuff that would help pay off some characters who we'd been watching over 9 episodes and bring them to a genuinely new place that was compelling. So as Mrs. Hawking learns to be part of a group and to accept other humans as not just a necessary part of the mission, but as a positive part, we could also have Mary paying off her journey of going from nobody little girl that nobody paid any attention to, who had no power to do anything, to not just a powerful individual actor, but a leader and a person who could inspire others and could be trusted with the responsibility to do great things when people were looking to her for that guidance and that direction. And it also helped us pay off Nathaniel's journey, which has been maturing from boy to man to dad, in that he would have a group of people around him who were looking to him to take care of them. And not necessarily that his place was in the spotlight, but to help those who were in the spotlight be the best version of themselves. So this it fit really nicely into that challenge that we had to pay off not just an episode, not just a trilogy, but a series of trilogies. And with the team of girls, we also got an opportunity to build out, an interesting cast of new characters where we could explore what kind of young women might be drawn to this sort of work and for what reason, and how they might approach it, and how they might be different or the same than the ones that we've already seen come before. We also will, for the first time, see the entire Hawking family together on stage. We've spent a lot of time talking about various members, and we've met a few outside of Nathaniel's immediate family, but for this time we will have Justin back, Nathaniel's brother, whom we haven't seen in a while. And though earlier in the 3rd trilogy we come to meet his daughter Beatrice, we will also get to see his son Reggie for the first time, and his mom and dad, Ambrose and Margaret, who have been mentioned probably more than any other non-appearing character, but finally get to meet them for the first time. And we'll get a little bit of context for why everybody is the way that they are. And of course, you can't believe that we're going to let you get out of this without seeing a cool fight. We probably have our most ambitious fight scene ever in this one, which will be very exciting to see how it turns out, because, what would a Mrs. Hawking story be without a little bit of spectacle in it? We've just started the rehearsal process recently, with plans to shoot in June of 2026. And things are going well so far, so it's very exciting to see it come to life. And as always, it's a joy to have our returning cast members back, but this time we've gotten to add a lot of newcomers, and it's the biggest group of newcomers we've ever had. And watching everybody sort of get into the groove and figure out their place in the world has been a very interesting experience. I hope they're having fun. I know I am. Of course, one of the reasons we had to get it together to finish the script was so that we would have time to run it through our typical revision process, which involves having some of our wonderful, talented, discerning friends over to read the script aloud and give us feedback on it, which is absolutely indispensable to polishing these things up. I don't know what we would do without this lovely, lovely, talented, and generous group. I cannot emphasize enough the importance not only of getting to hear your work when you're a dramatist in the editing process, because it's an art where you're supposed to hear it. It's not complete, it's not real when it's just sitting on the page. But also the importance of having outside feedback from people who know what they're talking about and who you can trust to tell you the truth. I am lucky enough that this has been a part of the entire Mrs. Hawking development process. And I think that the scripts and stories are so much better for having gone through it. So, thank you, folks. I can never thank you enough for that. And I have to say, there's something really special about having reached an artistic goal like this, to have dreamed many years ago of doing something as elaborate as having 9 plays in a series. And it's taken us quite a while. I drafted the very first one in its first rough, ugly form when I was in grad school in 2012. And it took a few years to get to the point where it was, part of a performance series. But since about 2015, we've written almost one play every year for it. And the fact that we have reached part 9, the dreamed of part 9, makes me really proud of us. And the series just has meant so much to us, and the fact that, we could maintain the creative energy. And I think we've done a pretty darn good job. Maybe that's not for us to say, but I'm really proud of this work. I have a document where I put every installment of the shows once they're finished, and I recently was able to put the part 9 in it. And it's, a 120,000 word plus document, and it has every word that we have slaved over and made a labor of love for all this time, and it just kind of warms my heart to know that we did it. And for the record, we wrote every lick of it without a buttons tap of AI. So as of this recording, in May of 2026, we have released parts 1 through 6 on the YouTube channel, plus the one comedic side story. So we've got 2 other shows in the can that have yet to be edited, and we're filming this one. So it'll be a little bit of a while before you see it. But I just wanted to take note of the occasion that the play exists. There are 9 of them, and I flatter myself that we did a pretty darn good job with this very big challenge that we set in front of us. We did not just write 9 good plays. We wrote 3 good trilogies and 1 good series. And I'm going to claim my flowers for that. So I hope to be able to share more with you soon. Thanks so much for coming along on this journey with me. If you want to watch the episodes of Mrs. Hawking that have been released so far, here on our YouTube channel, you can find all of them for free. I hope you'll take a look, and I really hope you enjoy them, because it's the delight of my life to get to make them. Bye for now.